Sony introduces the art of watching television. Sony Betamax lets you record and see what you want when you want, to summon into your home a world of wonder. And a remarkable feature called Beta Scan lets you scan forward and reverse to quickly find any single image. Betamax transforms the act of watching television into the art of watching television. No show is about to begin. Sony, the one and only.
Hey, this is Quinn Anthony, and you're watching Black People Horror. So, I want to tell you guys about my horror experience, which you can call it paranormal or whatever you want to call it. It was scary to me. So, I feel like I should start by giving you a little bit of context. I was a teenager, so I was about like 15, maybe 16, like in the rebellious age, the rebellious years, like where you just, I don't care, I want to live life and I'm going to live forever. It was that age. And I was a summer camp counselor at a church camp. And my little brother, he was my counselor in training. He's only like 18 months younger than me. I don't know why I said little. But my younger brother, he was the counselor in training. And so I was the main counselor and he was the younger counselor. And so one day I remember we were looking for games to play with the kids, like board games, because, you know, in a camp you always gotta have new things going on so the kids don't get bored. And so we went to the supply closet of the church camp, and me and my little brother were looking through the games. I remember we saw like Scrabble, Sorry, Monopoly and all this stuff, and what's the other, Trouble? That was definitely a game with all those little pieces. And then there was another game behind all of that stuff, hadn't been touched really, Dusty. It was a Ouija board. And mind you, we're at a church camp and we found a Ouija board. And me and my little brother, we weren't really scared of anything, so we were like, shit, let's play it. And so we gathered some of the other counselors up together, and during a movie time, I remember we were watching a scary movie with some of the older kids. And during a movie time, while the kids were watching the movie, me and the other counselors, including my younger brother, we were like, shit, let's play with the Ouija board. And so we all just got around the Ouija board. And of course, I don't know if you've ever seen people do it on YouTube or anything like that, but you don't know who the fuck is moving it. It's just like, oh, I feel like somebody's moving it. Oh my God, it's moving. And so you kind of have that little sensation of like, I'm not moving it, you're moving it, I'm not moving it. And so that went on for a little bit. And then after that, it was fun because it was moving, but we don't know who was moving it. Clearly, it could have been somebody thinking too hard and, their muscles, impulse. I don't know what it could have been, but anyways, the next day, one of the counselors that was playing with us comes back and is like, yo, some weird shit started happening to me last night. My TV turned on by itself 2 times after I turned it off. And she said that was very weird for her, and she heard noises. So I was like, maybe she's just like a fanatic or something. Ain't no way. Me and my little brother now, we weren't fazed by any of it, and we was like, hey man, let's play a private session with just me and you, and let's see what we could do, because I know you're not gonna move it, and I'm not gonna move it. And so me and him took the game back to our room, and we were playing it. And I remember it did move, but then we were both looking at each other like, bruh, come on, man, just don't move it, bruh. And so we thought we'd get clever and say, well, if there's something here, send us a sign. You know what I'm saying, like the white people. And that was kind of a mistake, because at that moment, as soon as we asked that question, the lights in the whole building shut off. And I'm talking about, there's kids playing. Like, me and my brother are off to the side, watching the kids playing, having playtime, playing with the little Ouija board, not letting them really know what we're doing. As soon as the lights come, they just flick off. As soon as we ask that question, me and him both look at each other wide-eyed like, and we run out the room, leaving the kids in the dark. And the kids kind of followed us down the halls. They don't know what they're scared of, but we know what we were scared of. And so that's kind of like the chapter 1, like that's the preface, So that is how I believe all this shit started. All right, so skip ahead. I had some crazy dreams in between. I guess I'll share that because they are kind of scary too. There was one dream where I was dreaming about South Park, So I remember it was the episode where they were turned into superheroes, and it was like they changed the animation style, and so they look like real superheroes. But then I remember Butters was up there, and then I was like, bro, that's not Butters' voice. I heard that in my head, like thinking about my dream, like, that's not Butters' voice. And as soon as I came to that realization in that dream, like the whole dream melted away, and I'm looking at this ugly, ugly face, and it's saying,
Quinn, I'm gonna get you.
and I'm like, oh shit. And as soon as I saw that face, I just started praying, and I didn't know what else to do because I felt like I was looking into evil. I woke up from my sleep and I started praying really hard. Skip ahead a little bit. There was a family reunion at my house, and this is the main part of the story right here. Okay, there's a family reunion at my crib. So when that happens, I have a big family, so there was a lot of people staying at my house, and so that forced me and my younger brother to sleep downstairs on. I slept on the pull-out bed couch, and he slept on the other part of the couch. So like think of the couch as like an L shape, and one part of it pulls out, and the other part just remains a couch. He slept on the part that remains a couch, and I slept on the pull-out bed. My older brother was back from college at this time too, because it's a big family function, and he was sleeping upstairs in what we call the bonus room. So it's like a separate bedroom up a different set of steps than the main set of steps with the main bedrooms. I don't live in a big house or nothing like that. It's a nice size house, 2 stories. So he was up in the bonus room, and I remember in the middle of the night, it was about 3 o'clock, and I was still awake. 3 o'clock is so cliche, but what the fuck? It was really around that time. But I was kind of like dozing off and awake. But then I heard his phone ring, and I was like, dang, he probably needs that. I remember he had a girl he was really into at that time, so I was like, it's probably her. And so he left his phone charged downstairs. So I found it and I took it up the stairs to him, and I'm like, bro, your girl's calling you. And so he's like, thanks. And he went back to sleep or talked to her or whatever. And I went back down the stairs to go to sleep. Now, when I was younger, a lot of times when I was in between sleep and awake, if I was too tired, like the room would start like shaking, like I don't know what that was about. I don't know if I was like, transitioning between sleep and awake. I don't know. But that started happening, and I was like, oh shit, I'm tired as hell. And I remember it didn't stop like it usually does. It just kept on going, and I was like, uh-oh. And eventually it shook so violently to the point where I wasn't in the room anymore. I was just standing in a forest. And this is where it gets weird, because I don't know if I was asleep or if I was awake. Because this is the thing. In the forest, I'm literally in a forest. There's foliage on the ground and trees and everything. But if I look over to where my brother was sleeping from my vantage point, I can still see him sleeping. I can still hear him sleeping. I can still, because he has asthma, so he breathes really loud when he sleeps. So I could hear him while I'm in this forest, and I can see him while I'm in this forest. However, my attention is not on him. My attention is on this figure that is standing in the forest with a hood on. It's a brown hood, like a monk would wear all the way, like from the bottom to the top, hooded up, had the hood flipped up and the head down, and it was brown hood. And that's where my attention was. And it said to me, it was like, say, I'll say it, but it said, say, blow. And I was like, huh? What is that? And then it was just like, say, blow. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to say that. And then it was like, it lifted up its head, and at the same time, it was like, say it. And as soon as that happened, a big old, a road appeared to the left of me now, which was forest, but now it's a road. And there's like thousands of bicyclists. They're all pedaling think about a bike marathon. That's it was. They were wearing yellow and red. I think it was like yellow little biking shirts and red helmets or something like that. And they all were pedaling with their heads down. And you could see this big old bunch of massive bikers rolling by, and they're all whispering that name. And in my head, it didn't sound like whispers. It sounded like people screaming at the top of their lungs, but audibly, it sounded like whispers. So like they're whispering the name like bam, and then I'm like, oh my God. And so my head is getting so loud, and I'm covering my ears, and I look back at the figure, which since it lifted its head, I could see that it was like an old woman looking thing. And I was like, okay, I'll say it. And I said, and then as soon as I said the B, this big ass white light just came, and the forest just disappeared like a big flash, like somebody took a picture type shit. And the forest disappeared, and I was left in the room, and it was shaking again. But my brother was right there on the couch breathing, like, yo, what the fuck? This is not a dream. And I remember I just started praying again. And this time I was praying words that I don't know how these words got put together. I've never said sentences like that before. So I feel like it was something else praying for me at that point, like coming out of my mouth. It was weird. I don't know how I eventually got to sleep that night, but I did. And I remember the next day, I had to go back to church camp. And the director, he was a pastor. So I went and told him about my dream. And I was like, hey, do you know what this word Balau means? And he looked at me, he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I heard this word in my dream. I never heard it before. And then he's like, yeah, I know what that is. And he's like, that's the name of a demon. And I was scared as fuck at that point. That's my paranormal story. I don't know if I can attribute anything that's happened after that to that, but it's nothing significant as that. Nothing as significant as that has happened since. And I know that was like my most terrifying moment with the paranormal. So make sure you like and subscribe to Black People Horror for more. Bow.
Hey, I'm Katrina. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and this is Black People Horror. Okay, so back in 2008, I was like 18 years old. I used to stay at my best friend's house all the time. Like we've been friends since the first grade. And so I would spend the night at her house all the time. And back then we would watch a lot of horror movies. During that time, like Paranormal Activity had just came out, and I think it was like part 2 we were watching. And we were excited to watch it because I saw part 1 and I liked it. Anyway, so we watched the movie. It was cool, it scared us. And to the point like where, we watched it again like the night after and fell asleep watching the movie and didn't think anything about it. So went on about our day the next day, and I'm with my other friend, Tamisha, and we were on our way to meet her mom at a furniture store because her mom had just bought a house and she was getting furniture, and so we were on our way to meet her. And we got there, but on our way there, my phone rung, but it rung and then it hung up. And it was a missed call from Crystal, and then with a voicemail from her. And I'm like, okay, so I'm driving, I'll wait until I get to the furniture store and I'll check the voicemail. And so I did that. So I got to the furniture store, and I remember I was sitting in a reclining chair, and I checked my voicemail, and it was a message from Crystal. And back then, she didn't have a car, and I had a car. So she would call me, and she would be like, bitch. She would be like, bitch, call me. I need you to take me somewhere. Something like that. So the voicemail was that. It was, bitch, call me. I need you to take me somewhere. But it wasn't her voice. It was more like,
Bitch, call me. I need you to take me somewhere.
And it was like really raspy in the background. I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I call her. I'm like, did you call me? I'm like, you want me to take you somewhere? And she was like, I didn't call you. And I'm like, bitch, you did call me. I'm like, you called me because I got a voicemail from you that said you called me. And she was like, Trina, I didn't call you. So I called my voicemail with her on the phone on 3-way and let her listen to it. And she was like, Trina, that's not me. That's not me. And I'm like, Crystal, what? I'm like, girl, stop playing. I'm like, but anyway, I knew it wasn't her, but I'm like, I'm like, what? that's weird. Anyway, so I leave from there now. I'm like, that's crazy. So I go to her house. And when I get to her house, she kind of like freaking out because she was like, something weird just happened. Like she was, I guess, laying down and in the midst of sleep and awake, or for her being asleep and like still awake, she heard my keys jingling, because at the time I had like a lot of keys and a lot of like key rings on my keys, so they would be jingling when I, like, really loud when I came in the house. So she heard my keys, and then I don't know, I guess her phone rung, and it was me supposedly on the phone. And I'm like, bitch, come outside. I want you to ride with me somewhere, which would make sense because, you know, I'm driving. And she said she spoke to me. And so I get there and I'm like, no, I didn't call you. And she like, Trina, you called me. So we looking at our phones and it's like legit a call from her phone on my phone, but she never made the call on her phone, and vice versa with her. I never had an outgoing call to her. She never called me. And we were like, so who called who? But it was the same voice. It was like, bitch, come outside. I want you to ride with me somewhere, with this real raspy background, which is like insane and crazy. And it scared the crap out of me and her for a long time, to the point like where I don't watch horror movies anymore. Like anything paranormal, I just will not watch it because I still cannot explain what happened. I really don't know what it was. I don't want to know what it was. And so yeah, that is my story. So if you want more Black people horror, like and subscribe.
Hi, my name's Terry Abney. I'm from Washington, D.C. This is Black People Horror, and here's my paranormal experience. Alright, so growing up, at 8 years old, I moved to Southwest 106, Washington, D.C., or like that area in Washington, D.C., and we moved into a house that was haunted by ghosts. No, seriously. Maybe a week into the house, we had a visitor. A young lady came and knocked on the door, and she asked if she could look around the house. It was a Section 8 house, which is public housing. And it was a little bizarre, but she said that she grew up in the house, and that prompted my grandmother to ask questions. Me and my siblings, or my siblings and I, were standing around, and we wondered why she would ask such a question, wanting to come in. But my grandmother said, okay, why do you want to come in? And she said, well, you know, my mother raised me here. And my grandmother asked where her mother was, and she said that her mother had died in the house. I don't remember how she died, but throughout that story we found out that her mother died in the house. Her uncle was like murdered in the house. 2 kids died in the house. It was just a lot of deaths in the house. It was really creepy. And so over the course of, she left, and over the course of the next year, people would come over and stay the night, and they started to say that they were seeing ghosts. My mother being one of them, who didn't live with us, she came and visited, and I remember her saying that she saw kids playing downstairs, and she thought that it was us, and she told us to go upstairs. And when she walked into the living room, the apparition was gone. I had an aunt who stayed the night, and she was in the shower, and she thought that someone was in the bathroom with her. She pulled the shower back, and there was no one there. And this went on until we moved out of the house, and we moved out because my grandmother was murdered in the house. So it was a little weird that she died in the house too. But all of my siblings saw ghosts. I personally have never seen a ghost. My mother's seen a ghost. But after my grandmother died in the house, we all came back. It's a long ass story, sorry. After my grandmother died in the house, we all came back to kind of get our things over the course of the next month after it was no longer deemed a crime scene. And I was laying across the dresser crying and begging her to speak to me. And my cousin, who at the time I think was 4 or 5, said that he saw my grandmother in the house. They let us come in 2 days after she died to find her insurance papers. He said that he saw her sitting on the edge of the bed in the nightgown that they reported that she died in. He would not have known that. And like, she pushed her glasses up and looked at her down to look at him because I guess he was playing in her room. Everybody had these encounters with her after she died, or a bunch of people, and I just kind of missed her, and I really wanted her to speak to me and show herself. It's fucking crazy. So I'm laying across a dresser, and I'm crying, and I'm just like, Grandma, I just want you to talk to me. And all I hear is, Terry. And I'm like, what the fuck? Y'all, that's not funny. And I hear it again, Terry. And it's her voice, and I hear it again. And I almost fall off the dresser. I bolt into the hallway. I'm yelling downstairs, like, y'all, that's not funny. Our house, our steps creaked. So everyone's like, what are you talking about? Nobody's upstairs. I'm like, that's not funny. Why would you do that? Why? Like, that's not funny. And so when I walked down the steps, I realized that none of them could have come up or down the steps, which I knew without the steps creaking. And I've never asked a ghost to speak to me, and I was literally, y'all, in tears. Like, I was screaming, like, please talk to me, I miss you, you know, say something, anything. And she did, and I was scared shitless. So be sure to like and subscribe for more Black people horror.